So I'm excited to be on round 2 of Shop Talk with you guys today. We've got Elliot the Beard with us again for round 2. I'm super excited. I'm glad that I've got my good side with us today because he's got both his sides are great. But today we've also got Jeff Lignegaris from Northside Tool Rental with us. Jeff, why don't you just introduce yourself really quick?
Yeah, we hadn't met until this morning. Jeff Lignegaris, Northside Tool Rental. We're a 71-year-old family-owned company based in Atlanta and serving the Atlanta area, more of the in-town area than the suburbs. All light to mid-sized construction equipment, about 80% contractor, about 20% DIYers. 4 locations, I think I said, staff of about 26 across the company. And I've been running the business with my brother Stefan for 25 years, approximately. Wow. Yeah.
And you said 70 years, or over 70
71 years.
71, yeah. But you're not 71.
I'm not yet.
Okay.
I feel like I'm getting there every day.
He's 18. Rental years are a lot like dog years.
That's right.
Yeah.
So how did Northside get started? I guess it's a multi-generational business.
It is. My grandfather, after the war, went to work for Martin Marietta, contractor in Atlanta. They sent him to California on business, and he saw a rental store. And
that's a great idea.
He said, I love it. And so he came back, told my grandmother, hey, I'm going to do this. Opened shop, kind of did it after hours and on weekends until he got a little momentum going, and then went full-time from there. And then spent the next several decades slowly building his business.
And then you've taken it over from your dad?
My dad was in it for a while, and then he left the business. And my grandfather was sort of classic. Like, he was in the business until 2 weeks before he died. I had taken it over on his behalf a couple of years prior to that. And so really we directly took it from my grandfather in terms of operations.
Outstanding.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to just dive in. One of the things I know after knowing you for a number of years now, we served on the board of Area Georgia together, is you're a little bit of an early adopter. You're kind of a tech guy, and always a resource for folks when they're like, you want to try this. And in fact, I know that you're an early investor even in a lot of really successful technologies in the rental industry. So ahead of the curve. Where are you feeling like technology is going in rental? I mean, it's not the most advanced industry. I like to say that we get to use proven technology, which sometimes means old technology. Like, where's your head at these days?
Well, that's okay because, we're such a procedure-driven business, right? Process, that injecting technology in the wrong place can be more disruptive than it's helpful. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that our industry sits on the sidelines a little bit to let things mature. And as a small business owner, people like me really don't have the bandwidth for big technology mistakes. It just costs too much money. It's too distracting. So I think the fact that our industry takes it a little bit slowly is probably beneficial. It's probably beneficial to the customers. But at the same time, what I think is always been happening, not just in our industry, but is, the customer is going to kind of pull us to where they need us to be. And as, the younger generations move up through the workforce and take on more important positions within their construction and building industries, they're going to kind of drag us with them as to what they require, right?
That's right.
And so one of the things I've kind of always kept in my head is we need to be moving our technology to where the younger generation seems to be heading, because they're our next set of customers. We've been around for 70 years. We have lots and lots of people that have used us for decades, and we're very appreciative of them. But if we're going to continue, we obviously have to backfill in that, right? And that means being at the right place with technology for the next group that's coming in. I was with some buddies that are builders 10 years ago, and I noticed that they were texting with their vendors constantly. Their drywall guy, their plumber guy, like that's how they ran these job sites, right? These aren't major job sites, but these are nice high-end housing and stuff like that. And so I just kind of ding, and so we put in a product called Textel, and that allows people to text our primary phone number, no special phone number whatsoever, and it ends up going right into the computers at the guys' workstations. And they love it because a lot of times you're calling a customer trying to make a delivery or set something up and you just can't reach them. Maybe they don't recognize the number, they're busy, but you can text them right there from the counter, and everybody can participate in that. So if you're off the next day and the guy texts back in, someone still sees it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I got a question for you, just because you're on the forefront of it, like Josh mentioned. Where is the technology going? You mentioned how you guys took the forefront of some of the texting element, which I think is brilliant, because you're exactly right. The last 10 years, everybody sends a text. It's got a trace to it. It's quick. It's very reactionary. It's better than email. But what is the next generation? What the kids that are coming out of college right now, how are they going to want to order equipment, and how are they going to run their job sites going forward for the next 10 years? What does that look like to you?
That's a great question. I wish I knew the answer to that. I would predict, if you look at, just watch the younger generation, right? They're going to live in that mobile device. They really, it's not even desktop platform anymore for them. It's primarily their phone, their iPads.
Yep.
So you're definitely going to have a lot of online presence that works well at that scale of device, and not just the old standard desktop device. There's going to continue to be a push towards more and more online transactions. I know that's one of the things we're going to probably dive into a little bit. And so the ability for at least the first part of setting up the rental process are going to have to be online. So the person's going to have to be able to find the product that they want, really be able to see and understand pricing, understand delivery, be able to kind of put their package together online and at least kind of create a cart of what they're looking for. And that's got to be pretty fluid. A lot of the larger nationals have a pretty good program going with that right now, I think. But I'm nowhere near the point where I think this thing goes completely electronic.
Okay.
There's gonna have to be a human-to-human touch point. Obviously, we have to bring you the stuff at some point, or you have to come pick it up.
So
and
could
bring
it become
back.
an Uber Eats, or could it become something along those lines where you order everything on your app, but then a person brings it to you and you don't care who that person is? They can work for the company or they can be an outside person. You just want to order it on your phone and you want to DoorDash it, Uber Eats it, whatever the platform is. Is that a possibility going forward?
Well, I think there's a possibility to get it started, and there's a possibility to complete it in a way that's somewhat like you're describing. I don't see us third-partying the delivery piece of it necessarily, unless it's to a third party that's specializing in this type of product line, because, first of all, there's, as we all know, there's acceptance that has to be signed off on properly. There are safety and release things that need to be signed off on properly. In a business like ours, we deal sometimes and pretty frequently with people that may not have used that exact product before. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's got to be somebody there that's bringing the equipment that understands how to answer questions for the customer. And then there's all the little details that we want to get. Was it what dock did you drop the scissor lift off at? And is there any terrain that we need to be aware of? Right. But see, one of the things, and this is why I don't think we're there yet, is there's a process in every order you take of qualifying the rental, right? Hey, we do a lot with the general public. So we get people that put in orders for the least expensive track loader that we offer, right? Because that's the lowest price one.
That's right.
But when you ask them what they're doing, well, I'm lifting 8,000 pounds and I got to put it up in a dump truck. Well, that's not going to work, right?
Yep.
And the problem that you have, I went through this when we first started messing around with some online ordering years back, is that you have to make sure you get the product that's going to work for what they're doing. And if they don't know with certainty what that is, or necessarily what it is that you stock that is the best option for what they're doing, you cannot weather the mistakes of running a whole package of stuff out to somebody who goes, no, I wanted the thing that with the other kind of attachment, or I use this kind of controls.
Yeah.
Right. So at some point, I still think we've got to have a human-to-human conversation to verify what you want. Right.
Verify, coaching. People need to know what it is.
Now, you've got to qualify the rental at some stage, and so that's where I think that there's always going to be that human touch point, and so even the people that are very resistant to it, and the younger the generation it is, the more that they are, there's going to have to be at some point where we have a conversation, I think. Now, when you've got a regular customer and you've kind of qualified the customer more than you've qualified the rental, where you have built a level of trust with that person. This person knows what they want, right?
That's right.
You're a landscaper. I come and always get the mini skid and the auger attachment. Okay, fine. We'll just take that order.
Yeah, you know what you're doing and you know how you're
Right.
going to plot it out. Yep. I think you're exactly right. I think that there will be that element because people look to the industry. They look to equipment professionals, and the industry is always changing. The way we dug a hole 20 years ago is not the same way we dig it now.
Yep.
And the way we dig it 20 years in the future, whether that's an electric machine or whatever, is going to change again. And they are going to look to us what's going to make the job site run faster, safer, and ultimately more efficient. And if we can't coach them on that, we're just peddling equipment. We actually don't bring value.
No, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I was going to say a lot of the same things that Jeff was saying. I mean, my biggest fear is going to be liability if somebody else is delivering it. But I think in a lot of cases, your customer base matters. You know, a lot of the folks that you work with, Elliot, you know, the place you were last week, in fact, you know, they're large contractors, repeat customers. In those cases, an outside hauler isn't a big deal. You know, we've been using outside haulers for years. If you've got somebody who is a smaller contractor or more of a novice, hasn't used that before, I mean, the biggest things getting stolen right now are Bobcat MT100s, mini skids.
Yep.
We get calls 3 times a week on that exact product, make and model. And my guys immediately go, yeah, we don't carry that, and put the number in the system as a do not rent.
It's terrible, but being able to satisfy that last line, I think makes sense. Now, to have that as a flex ability, I've sent a demo hammer by a cab before. You know, I think that it would be nice to have some options like that to occasionally use, just like having an outside hauler. But I don't know that we could depend on that fully.
That's a great insight. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, and you brought up, you know, it depends on sort of the company. We're a public cash kind of a business, and so we deal with really the general public. So we have a lot of customers we haven't flushed out yet. Whereas if you're at maybe a larger national chain and it's all credit, so it's all customers that have been, you know, previously flushed. So we have a whole subset of products, including the one you just mentioned, that if you haven't rented from us before, you have to come in person to establish your rental, period. There's no exceptions to that. Okay?
Is that going to be a barrier to entry when people are looking to do business going forward?
Sometimes.
Because like right now, you can order from any restaurant you want.
Right.
You can order from Amazon. You can order from anything you want, making life super easy. But I'm a true proponent of the person has to come in. You have to have a copy of their driver's license and all that. But you mentioned so eloquently, and you put it in there, that's the way we did it for security. But what's the future of it?
I think there is a space, though, for us to not have people come in. You know, if you're going to deliver that piece of equipment, you need some ID verification when you're delivering the piece of equipment. If they're going to rent it and pick it up, then they're going to come in eventually anyway. There's so much more that we can do with ID verification, testing a person's mobile device, seeing if they're a live human being, comparing it to databases, AI theft stuff. It's pretty good technology, and it's being developed by the medical industry and some other industries where I think we can be confident enough that if that person eventually comes in or if they're eventually going to have it delivered, we're okay. Also keeping in mind, 90% of our business is repeat business. So
yeah, we're going to have to flush out how to do that in the theft environment that we're in today. Because the way the theft is working today is it's a straw buyer coming in. Right. And it's being paid for by a straw payer on the other end, right? And so if it's all electronic and I'm just going to order up what I need and I'm going to ask for it to be delivered over here, if I'm a contractor, I might legitimately need it dropped off at my job site where my workers are and I'm not there. But we can't know that. And if you order it and you tell me to drop it off with that guy over there, that's exactly how the thefts happen. That's exactly what goes on.
That's the part that I wouldn't allow. You can order it, and you can be a first-time renter, but I have to drop it off to you. Whoever is the driver's license that's renting it and paying for it has to be the driver's license that's on the job site when I drop it off for that first order.
Keep in mind, you're pushing a lot out to the driver.
100%.
Okay, you're taking stuff that you've trained deeply on your rental counter with your staff, and now you're expecting your delivery driver, or forbid a third-party driver, to know exactly how to validate all this information. And
I will tell you right now, because I rent equipment just for fun because I get bored on my weekends. And I went down to one of the big box stores, and when I went in to get a piece of equipment, and it was this past week, and when I went down there, they had Clear, like you get at the airport where they have the Clear. They actually had, I went up to the counter and they said, before you're allowed to rent from us, you have to use Clear. I said, I don't have Clear and I don't want to pay for it. And they said, you don't pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
They literally take a screenshot on my phone. I walked in and it had a little QR code. I scanned it with my phone. It said, okay, now we know who you are. Take a picture of yourself with your phone and take a picture of your driver's license with your phone. Now you're allowed to rent from us.
Very
so Clear, there's already that technology.
That's very
You mentioned it,
I like that.
but that's coming already where, I mean, I didn't have to pay for it. I don't know. Obviously, somebody did. Clear's not doing it for free. But building that database, maybe that's exactly what you're saying. And like you're saying, Josh, of how do we make it that somebody, quote, physically doesn't need to come into the branch, is Clear could say, hey, send us these pictures and we know who you are.
Well, that's interesting because that could be an entire revenue stream for Clear, serving the entire industry. Here, I'm already validated in the Clear rental registry.
Yeah.
Right. And so now I can use that validation across the rental industry. That's very interesting.
Yeah. I think there's technology like that will simplify it. There's still going to be that complexity in rental, at least for the foreseeable future, where you're going to have good process and you're going to have teach people the red flags. You know, if it's a U-Haul truck that you're dropping it off to or that's picking it up.
Right.
If it's a first-time renter, it's high risk. If it's an out-of-state driver's license, it's high risk. There's all these red flags we should know. Criminals are amazing at what they do, unfortunately. So some of them are still going to get you, but it's limiting that I think that we need to do without ruining a digital experience, without ruining an easy button, you know. But when I think about easy buttons, one of my personal pet peeves is websites. And I'm kind of curious from your perspective, Elliot, can you on a job site outsell a crappy website, or is that just part of being in the game now?
Yes, but no. And so here's what I mean. And great question, by the way. I think that, like Jeff said, we're in the relationship business, and you go in and they want to know somebody, they want to trust somebody. You said it, 90% of our business is repeat business. So people buy from people that they know, like, and trust. The problem is part of know, liking, and trusting is people verify. Like, nobody buys me and my services from my website. But I'll tell you right now, I can tell by the traffic that they go and they verify, is Elliot's company a real company? Does he have a website? What are his services? How is it laid out? Is he professional? Is it clean? Is he legit? And so the thing is I think that it is a great website is an amazing marketing tool, and you can actually drive more business from it. Is that if I walk onto a job site, or anybody does, and you say, do you need equipment? As a general contractor, do you need a skid steer with a sweeper attachment, or do you need a generator? What most general contractors rent. And they say, sure. But if you can drive them to your website, all of a sudden they're saying, oh, this guy's got auger attachments for the skid steer. We can use that for putting up our fencing. He also has temporary cooling units. It's super hot right now, and we can get those units from him as well. So it's a marketing and branding tool for people to see the entire abundance of services that we offer. But I'm going to tell you right now, if your website is just flat and plain, and people don't understand your locations, your services, it isn't personalized, you're kind of missing a chunk of the business that is very easy. It's expensive to build up front, but there's normally not a lot of maintenance costs on it. And people avoid that up front. It's low maintenance. It's not something you got to do every day.
Yeah.
But if you don't have it, it's killing a percentage of your business every day.
So part of the reason I went to you first is because I feel like that's the extreme, because that's the relationship business to business experience where somebody's renting over time. Like if you can survive a bad website, that's when you're going to survive a bad website, right? But I think a lot of your customers, Jeff, probably are seeing you for the first time online. You know, they're searching for, I need to run an excavator or an MT100 near me,
Right.
and they're finding you. Like,
Correct.
Do you think that's survivable in your environment?
What do you mean by survivable?
Can you still have a rental business with a crappy website and be
Oh,
successful?
no. I mean, the website, you're describing the website as a validator of the relationship that you just met with somebody in person, and for us, it's almost the other way around, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to see the website first. That's going to validate, oh, this is a legitimate company. They look professional. and I can trust that now it's worth me even engaging with them to buy my product. One thing, and not to circle back, but ultimately, the rental business is also upsell, right? Did you know I had this attachment? Do you need these diamond blades? Do you need the safety gear for this job site, right? And if you're relying 100% on your website for all orders and you never talk to the customer, how much of that are you missing out on?
Yeah. So how far do you think we are from a GPT that can have that conversation?
I think we're closer than most people know.
Yeah.
I agree.
I definitely think we're in a place, and I've been testing it for the last year, but definitely in a place where you can go in there and you can do 50 to 70% of what you can do on the phone. All the things that were the biggest fears for me of a customer going to the website and not being able to find something, not knowing what something was called, not using the right search term, not knowing the right product for their particular project. You know, like here in Georgia, you want a core aerator, not a spike aerator. You know, if you're in Florida, you want a spike aerator, not a core aerator. And if somebody moves from Florida to here, they're going to look for a spike aerator. They need a core aerator. GPTs are already really good at, I need to aerate my yard. What do I need? And it can find the aerator on my rental website and point them to the right aerator. So that was a huge fear of mine. What it doesn't do yet, that I think is more complicated, although it might be coming pretty soon, is what you were talking about of, okay, well, now I need to understand the project, not just the aeration, but what else can they do? Can I recommend pelletized lime? Can
Elaborate on the GPT. I know what it is, but the thing is, I realize a lot of people, like you guys, are both big technology guys. You've seen it in the industry. What is a GPT to average Joe who's just cracking into the technology?
It's kind of like a chatbot. It's an AI-driven chatbot, but it's a chatbot that is designed to be able to have a general conversation with you, or a conversation that is trained based on a ton of data out there. So you could ask it anything from, my Bobcat T190 is overheating, what could be the causes, to I need to get greener grass. What are some things that I might need to rent to get greener grass? It is relatively early technology, but it is progressing incredibly fast. So most people have heard of ChatGPT. Microsoft has versions, Google has versions. Everybody's trying to release something like that. We'll be having actually a hands-on training seminar at the Future of Equipment Rental next year that you'll actually get to practice using a GPT. But I think that technology for a website is kind of critical, because so many young people now, they don't want to pick up the phone first. They might want to text. I love that you're doing the texting. I think that's critical. But they want to go to the website first, and they want to try and figure out some of it on their own. You know, what I think about is, you know, when we first started doing phone and sales training, one of the first things that we were trained on is the first question a customer asks is usually not the question they need the answer to. So they call and they ask, do you have a blank, or how much is a blank? They don't want to sound stupid. Nobody wants to call and say, hey, I'm trying to get greener grass. What do I need? So instead, they call and they say, do you have an aerator? How much is an aerator? And if they're a pilot or engineer, then they say, do you have a Bluebird XYZ 3174 Bluebird aerator? But they ask that question when that's not really the question that they need to be asking. And so I think a lot of those things are getting to be a digital environment where we can make some difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we just launched a new website, front end and catalog side. But as I'm going through the process of this, you know, I'm obviously, like Josh, very plugged in with this stuff and curious about it. And I'm coming to realize that, yeah, the product catalog is there. It's not going away. But the reality is you're really going to be coming to the website and it's going to ask you immediately, what are you doing? Oh, I'm putting a fence up in my yard. Boom. Okay. And it's going to know how long is that run, and how many posts are you putting in, and et cetera, et cetera. It's going to know to ask these questions. It's going to build your order for you.
That's right.
And if it's done well, you've done a lot of the qualifying portion.
Totally.
Right.
Well, and you think about it, how long does it take to train somebody who's new to the rental industry on what size auger bit to recommend?
That's the right answer, Jeff.
Yeah, a long time.
They're still not trained. I'm still not trained.
But you think about something as simple as putting in a fence. What size auger bit do you need in Georgia red clay for a 1 or 2 man auger that's going to minimize the amount of concrete based on the person's ability level vehicle, to put in a straight fence. Like there are answers to those questions that are complicated. And that's just one thing that somebody might do once a year, you know, and so there's so much that we do that's complicated like that.
So we do a lot of business generation through Google AdWords, right, or Google Ads, and some minor other platforms, or minor amount for us in terms of what we spend. But we're staring down, and I'm having these conversations with our digital marketing company. We're staring down the point that Google wants to just answer these questions, right? And so if they're going to come to my website and say, I want to build a fire pit in my backyard, great. I can set them all up and I'm going to put that order in my system. But if they ask that question of Google, how do I get in the middle of that transaction?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Okay.
Do you throw in geofencing? And geofencing is basically where the computer figures out where you're at. Like a lot of times you go onto your app or your phone and it says, hey, can we access your location and can we access your stuff? So geofencing, a lot of times they'll do a push because they want somebody who's close and convenient.
Fair enough, but but Google's going to control who they.
I'm with you. Yeah, so geofencing won't matter in this case because what you're talking about is when you do the search now and you get I think it's barred with Google. Is it barred? Regardless, Google has their own AI where when you put in a question, a lot of times you're getting a GPT answer now. And it's not necessarily feeding you to somebody's website. So if I say I need to run an aerator, what aerator do I need? It's not going to send you to Northside Tool Rental. It's going to tell you what aerator you need. And so now Jeff and Northside are cut out of that equation. And he's saying, how do I get cut back into that? Because before, when somebody put in rent an aerator near me, I'm number one. Well, and that was a great ad word.
But Google's going to have a way to cut yourself into that. That's how they make their
That's
money,
a good point.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's going to be a new system as to when it gives that answer. Also, who does it recommend where those solutions are and how's that formatted? And we don't know the answer to that yet.
So I'm thinking out loud here. What about on the training side? You mentioned that just a minute ago. Is there a place on the training side to use some of these as assists for the staff to be recommending the right items? Could we train a GPT on some of those things? Like I used to have these one-pagers for each piece of equipment or these different projects that would help be a cheat sheet for stuff like which auger size or which type of aerator or those things that you use to train somebody. Could we train some GPTs on stuff like that and either have something that's really easy for them to type in a question so they can get some supports and some recommended items, or even that listens, transcribes automatically and is feeding them recommendations while they're talking to a customer?
It's an interesting thought, and it leads me to think about, in my computer system, if you pull up, mini skid, it's going to pop up for our rental coordinators, the options, right? But with the use of ChatGPT or any of the other AIs, maybe we don't have to go into our system and tag and associate every single item with every other item, right? It's just
which nobody does but you.
Well,
I appreciate that you do that.
Well, we do.
But so many people don't even take the time to utilize that kind of
stuff. But now the coordinator can pull up the mini skid and the system can automatically know what products that you have internally that are going to go with this. It doesn't take any manpower. So the people that are maybe too lazy to go through their system and associate all their items, now they don't have to.
Because one of the things that I often try and think about is what's an assist? If you think about using an encyclopedia versus using Google, it's a skill. And if you have, like, say, your grandparents and you see them try and Google something, it's painful. They don't know how to utilize that skill. Are there some of these tools that we can utilize as assists for stuff like this that you can start utilizing now?
Well, I was going through my mind as we're talking about this is that you have to know how to ask these AIs the question.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
and if you don't know how to ask it right now, you're not necessarily going to get the right answer. So now, to your point, it could be a phenomenal tool for my rental coordinator as long as he knows how to use that tool.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very different tool than the standard rental software that you used to use.
Well, it's still up to the human to make the decision. Yeah. Like I know there is a tool on the market right now, and I won't name names, but it does AI damage detection. And so there's a lot of inspections apps out there. There's a lot of people who are now thankfully taking pictures of their pieces of equipment when it goes out, when it comes back in. But what this tool does is it actually highlights what's wrong with that piece of equipment, and it can estimate what the cost of repairs and the parts needed for that is.
That's neat.
And it does it all immediately, and it'll even tell the driver that the picture you took wasn't great. You didn't get all 4 sides, or it was blurry, or it wasn't close enough, or whatever it is. And then it'll tell you, this is what I think the repair cost is for this. Now, it's still up to the human. What do I want to do with that information?
Right.
Right? But I think supports like that, now, those probably aren't cheap supports. You got to be willing to pay for some of this stuff. But supports like that are incredibly valuable.
Well, you and I were just having a conversation before we started the podcast about when the industry is in a slowdown, or not a contraction, but it's not the boom times maybe. So now you got to really protect your margins.
That's right.
And a software product like that, if it's capturing that $500 in damage and that $300 in damage, that's money that's not going out of your pocket.
Absolutely. And you don't get something back and say, oh my gosh, I've already got myself into a challenge that I can't get out of. I also think it's really interesting is that as a lot of the new technologies come out, somebody said to me the other day, and it really captured me. I was like, it's difficult. I use, writing pads. I use AI. I use different things to help me out. And I grasped onto this new technology, and somebody sat down and they said the only reason why we use technology is it eliminates the mundane tasks. And I sat there and I really thought about it. I was like, when you go back and people used to do handwritten things and you used to have to save the carbon copies, your grandpa did that, and you used to sit there and you have to walk over to the copy machine and make copies of everything. And it kept evolving and evolving. Is the mundane tasks are, we have people who do data entry and there's human error. And if you can sit there, and then there's people who, I get fatigued, you get fatigued. We forget to ask the questions to our customers. What else do you need? I understand you're using a skid steer. Do you need to buy any eco fencing or any erosion fencing to go with that? Do you need any other products? Do you want a smooth bucket or a tooth bucket? And the person forgets to do it, and rather than say, I forgot to ask, is it a smooth or a tooth bucket? The person on the counter just puts tooth bucket. And then the customer calls up, and it wastes time. And just like you said, Jeff, the second we start wasting time, you can't charge a customer because we put the wrong bucket on.
Right.
We didn't ask.
Right.
And now all of a sudden we're losing those margins, and the industry is getting tighter and tighter and tighter because of the, increased equipment costs, increased interest rates. All those things are attacking our margins. If we're not using technology to try and find those margins, our inefficiencies are cutting into our money. And it's funny because everyone says, like we discussed, I don't want to spend the money. And I don't want to spend the money because I don't have it. Truth is can you afford not to have it?
Right.
Because otherwise you're losing these little pieces of money here and there, and it's costing you $100,000 a year without capturing those photos.
And you don't know it's costing you that.
No, because it's doing it a nickel at a time.
Yeah, and it's, we'll just replace that.
We'll just replace it
on there.
And you get to the end of the year, and what nobody says is I wasted $100,000 because I didn't spend $50,000 to have the great website. I'll never know what person I didn't get.
Yeah.
I didn't have that piece of technology that showed me images, and I lost that $500 repair.
Right.
And so it nickel and dimes your business, and you get to the end of the year, and you're like, what technology could I have embraced to elevate my business and capture better margins and be more efficient?